But if you're the National Football League, okay, clearly it's not about talent anymore. It's about something else. And I'm going to tell you, I spent a large amount of the last 24 hours thinking about nothing more than I was thinking about collusion.
The $50 million robbery of Shedeur Sanders. Because that's what I just witnessed. Everywhere we've seen, everything we've seen, everybody that has seen him play said he is the one or two in this draft. I love Cleveland picking this kid.
The NFL draft is usually a time of celebration, a moment when dreams come true and talent gets recognized. But in the spring of 2025, that dream took a sharp turn for Shedeur Sanders. Instead of a milestone, it became a nightmare. One that might lead to one of the biggest lawsuits the NFL has faced in years. Shedeur, the Colorado Buffaloes quarterback and son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, was once expected to be a top 10 draft pick. But instead, he slid all the way down to the 5th round, pick number 144, by the Cleveland Browns. Now, quiet speculation has grown into loud conversations. Reports say the Sanders family is getting ready to take legal action against the NFL and several team owners, accusing them of collusion, defamation, and causing long-term financial harm. And the more you look into it, the more complicated it seems. From the outside, Shedeur's sudden drop in the draft doesn't add up.
What we're looking at is a convergence of a lot of history falling into one weekend. There's a history of the NFL and their ideas about protecting the shield and what they feel like. There's histories of the Sanders, history of the quarterback, which makes this really complicated and pretty much impossible to find one specific answer about why Sanders fell. He was probably already a fringe first-round pick, so some of the mock drafts were wrong. There's probably some owners out there who wanted to humble him and Sanders, and then there's just the talent that was there. So I'm not, it's okay, I think, to say we don't know what the specific answer is. What I do know, though, and I know it's maybe a little bit of a tangent, but I feel like it's important to say, I want to say this to folks on the internet and folks who are paying attention. This is not the Colin Kaepernick situation. This is important to know. Colin Kaepernick was absolutely blackballed from the league for standing up for folks' rights. This is not what Shedeur Sanders went to. He was embarrassed for 48 hours in the draft, and he ended up going to a Browns team where he still could possibly be a starter on that team because they managed to have half of Wu-Tang Clan's worth of bad quarterbacks, and he can still work his way up to a starter. So this is not the same situation. His career can still end up being okay.
Shedeur Sanders led the entire NCAA in completion percentage with an impressive 74.1%, broke several school records, and was right at the center of what many called the most talked about college football storyline in the last 20 years. With months of hype suggesting he wouldn't fall past the early second round, the expectation was clear. But instead, he had to sit through 3 painfully long days. Then came pick number 144, a moment that quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons. The cameras at his private draft party cut away. The champagne never even got opened. The room went completely silent. Deion Sanders didn't hold back afterward. According to those close to him, he was furious, allegedly saying, "This league just blackballed my son." At first, it sounded like a heartbroken father speaking out, but not long after, the leak started.
Because how in the hell does 32 teams in the National Football League pass on a quarterback that was universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the country entering this draft, and 32 teams passed on him? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 different times they passed on him. How the hell does that happen? 4 rounds. It doesn't happen to a quarterback. We've never seen anything like this before. We've seen guys drop because of injuries. We've seen guys drop because of off-field issues, but we've never seen a quarterback projected to be a top 20 pick, universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, projected to be a first rounder, in all likelihood a safe bet of a late first rounder, and drop literally to the 5th round. We haven't seen anything like that.
So a lot of times when you go to these combine meetings, teams give you things to challenge you. Teams will have a player's worst plays ready for him, and they'll show him his worst plays and say, "Hey, why don't you explain them?" And Shedeur apparently didn't take to it well. And at one point, one of the few teams that actually was interested in him said, well, what do you make of this really bad play? And Shedeur said, maybe I'm not the guy for you. That's not the answer. Another moment. What they do during the film and the combine and the meetings is teams will install mistakes intentionally planted in the install, and they want you to catch them. Shedeur didn't, and when a coach called him out, once again, it didn't sit well. It's like, bro, there's not many teams needing quarterbacks, especially since Pittsburgh appears to have a deal with Aaron Rodgers and Tennessee's getting Cam Ward. So you're down to the Giants, who were not interested at all, and Cleveland, who traded out of that 2 spot because clearly they were looking for next year's class like the Rams are.
Based on internal messages uncovered by a private investigator working with Shedeur Sanders' legal team, messages that haven't been made public yet but are currently being looked into by several independent news outlets, it looks like a few NFL team owners may have raised red flags about the media frenzy and the branding baggage tied to Shedeur. Even more concerning, there are reported claims that some team ownership groups were having behind-the-scenes talks, quietly advising each other to steer clear of drafting Shedeur unless they absolutely had no choice. People close to the Sanders camp say these private conversations even mentioned things Deion said back during Super Bowl week. Those blunt interviews where Coach Prime made it clear they would call the shots and wouldn't play for certain teams. Basically, they were following the same playbook Eli Manning used.
Will you step in Eli Manning like, Deion Sanders like, to the point where like you told him, hey man, I ain't taking that psych test with the Giants. I followed you after that. I said I wasn't taking it either. Will you step in and do some of that if it's the wrong organization and say he ain't going there?
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it publicly. I'll do it privately.
This time around, though, the league supposedly answered with a wall of silence and behind-the-scenes sabotage. According to insiders, the upcoming lawsuit is expected to claim that the NFL worked together to hurt Shedeur's draft stock, not because of his skills, but because of how things looked in the media, internal politics, and bruised egos.
If they played the cards and picked him up in the 5th round, but I surely would like to know how they knew he would still be there in the 5th round. I've been on that stage for years and years and years. I've never seen them position the cameras in position, give forewarning about who's about to be drafted. I wonder if Cleveland got a call from somebody in the NFL saying, we got to draft this kid. You just robbed this young man of $50 million. And it wasn't on his playing ability. Wow. Shame on you.
Primetime Deion Sanders' natural bravado, coupled with that of his son. They say that the whole interview process wasn't that impressive. When he showed up at the NFL scouting combine and refused to work out, that hurt him. The interview process while he was there hurt him, etc., etc. You know what, y'all? I get it. It makes perfect damn sense if he's drafted in the 2nd round. It's the fact that he fell to 5th that's alarming.
After the draft, analysts on Fox Sports tried to make sense of the slide. Some said Shedeur wasn't a once-in-a-generation type of player. Others questioned his intangibles or pointed to the so-called baggage he brought with him. But instead of cooling things down, those comments only added fuel to the fire for Sanders' legal team. They're asking, how does a quarterback with a higher completion percentage than the #1 overall pick fall more than 130 spots? Why did draft experts rate him so highly, yet not one NFL GM publicly pushed back when he slid? From the Sanders camp's point of view, this wasn't just a case of a poor team fit. It looked more like a deliberate effort to send a clear message. Players don't get to control their future. That power belongs to the league. And nothing seemed to capture that message more clearly than Colin Cowherd's widely shared line: "Nobody wants a celebrity backup quarterback." According to sources, that quote is already being looked at closely by attorneys and has shown up in early versions of the legal filing. To them, it's more than just a jab. It's part of the case.
Kevin Stefanski feels like his job may be on the line.
I don't concern myself with outside type of things. But I'm committed to his development, just like all of our rookies. So we'll continue to focus on getting our guys better. And that's what we'll stay committed to, and that's what's important to me.
And so you didn't get this man a fighting chance to compete. He went into a gunfight with 2 knives. He gonna lose that every time.
You know you're going to waive Tyler Huntley. So what good did that 2-minute drive do for him? Was it going to help him? Don't you think Shedeur would have benefited more from a 2-minute drive than Tyler Huntley?
Coach Kevin Stefanski looks like he's backing off, and the heat is clearly on him and the Browns to make a call. After the game, several offensive linemen who'd been on the field with Shedeur Sanders were waived, and a few players had their deals terminated. The blowback was immediate, forcing Stefanski to explain his handling of Shedeur's snaps, especially why he pulled him before the 2-minute hurry-up, a situation many felt fit the rookie perfectly. Stefanski didn't sound convincing. Under obvious pressure, he said he put Tyler Snoop Huntley in for the final 2 minutes to get him tuned up. He looked rattled delivering it, still pushing the idea that Huntley needed that work. Let's be real, Huntley was an emergency pickup when injuries piled up. He's a stopgap, unlikely to stick on the 53, and yet Stefanski used that moment to sit Shedeur. The message in his tone was hard to miss. He knows the choice isn't playing well, and the whole approach around Shedeur Sanders is already blowing back on the staff. Before we go deeper into Stefanski's full comments and what they mean going forward, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more updates. As for the decision itself, the head coach's shaky explanation only highlighted how tense things have become. Framing the move as a tune-up for Huntley doesn't track with the stakes or with Shedeur's development timeline. It looks less like a plan and more like a scramble, and it's starting to backfire.
And did you, I'm sure you kind of answered this last night, but why didn't you keep him in for the 2-minute, or why did you decide to take him out?
Yeah, nothing more than decided to give Snoop.
TJ Houshmandzadeh, the former NFL wideout, didn't mince words about Kevin Stefanski's handling of Shedeur Sanders. He said that in all his years around the league, he's never seen a coach appear so uninterested in a player's success. To Houshmandzadeh, Stefanski's choices look personal, like there's a grudge against Shedeur, and that's what he finds most troubling. TJ Houshmandzadeh called the bias blatant and cautioned that, if it's real, the push on the Browns to dismiss Kevin Stefanski will only intensify.
The fans gonna be saying, Shedeur our quarterback. Shedeur should be our starter. Shedeur should be the guy that starts game 1, week 1. Look what he did. They didn't want that to happen. And I don't know what's going on with Kevin Stefanski. It's almost as if, and I don't even want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
And that's exactly how it came across. Kevin Stefanski's body language said plenty. He looked like a coach feeling the axe over his shoulder. TJ Houshmandzadeh added that this isn't the first time Shedeur Sanders has been treated this way. He pointed to the opening preseason game, where Shedeur was sharp, yet Stefanski offered no real praise. Now, after what unfolded yesterday, it looks like Stefanski is pushing the idea that Shedeur was at fault, almost as if he's trying to validate the staff's stance that they were right and Sanders was wrong. TJ even suggested it felt like the situation was engineered from the start to make Shedeur come up short.
Well, like when he played well the first game, he was so off-putting, like, oh yeah, well, we'll see what happens next. Like, he should, he played great, man. He exceeded our expectations. He didn't say none of that. And so to me, it's as if they want him to fail so they can justify doing what they want to do.
And Houshmandzadeh's red holds up. From the very first preseason outing, Kevin Stefanski's slant felt apparent. Even after Shedeur Sanders put together an impressive, mistake-free showing, Stefanski declined to highlight him, retreating to broad comments about developing all the quarterbacks and skimming past Shedeur's standout work. It didn't come across as genuine buy-in on Shedeur's future in Cleveland. Now the spotlight is squarely on Stefanski, who seemed intent on easing Shedeur towards the margins. Ironically, the coach looks more vulnerable than the rookie. After weeks of rigid messaging and thin criticism, he's suddenly pivoting, saying they'll concentrate on developing Shedeur Sanders. An about-face that screams pressure from the fan base. And it isn't only fans. Reporters and analysts are pressing him as well. Emmanuel Acho weighed in, arguing that by placing Shedeur with an offensive group filled with players unlikely to make the 53, Stefanski engineered a no-win evaluation. Acho's point was straightforward. Even a quarterback with Tom Brady's resume would have struggled in that setup with that caliber of support. In those conditions, any rough patches for Shedeur were predictable, an indictment of the context, not the quarterback.
What a COVID year,
So it gave everybody an extra year if you wanted it.
Understandable. But listen, it's
What the chat say? The chat believe he took a shot or no?
Let me look in the chat. I ain't even open my phone. Hold on. I'm curious to see what the chat would think. They are saying
Hushman Zeta's take still holds. From the first preseason snap, Kevin Stefanski's slant felt obvious. Even after Shedeur Sanders delivered a crisp, mistake-free showing, Stefanski sidestepped any real credit, defaulting to broad talk about developing all the quarterbacks and skating past Shedeur's standout work. It didn't read like genuine buy-in on Sanders' future in Cleveland. Now the spotlight has swung to Stefanski, who looked intent on easing Shedeur to the edges of the plan. Ironically, the coach seems more vulnerable than the rookie. After weeks of rigid messaging and thin critiques, he's suddenly pivoting, saying they'll focus on developing Shedeur Sanders. A shift that screams fan pressure. And it isn't only the fan base. Reporters and analysts are pressing him too. Chad Okosinko weighed in, arguing that by sticking Shedeur with an offensive group filled with fringe or soon-to-be-waived players, Stefanski set up a no-win evaluation. Ochocinco's point was straightforward. Even a quarterback of Tom Brady's caliber would have struggled in that environment with that level of support. In those circumstances, any rough patches for Shedeur were predictable, an indictment of the setup, not the quarterback. Chad Ochocinco warned that the chorus of team-friendly critics would soon start branding Shedeur Sanders a bust, reducing him to fifth-string status, and the real problem would get ignored. Kevin Stefanski put Shedeur in a no-win setup. Despite growing backlash, Ochocinco argued this all looks like a coordinated effort to drag Shedeur down, with more energy spent tearing him apart than acknowledging why he struggled. He was right about the setup, but wrong about the Browns skating by. Fans are loudly calling for Stefanski's job over what they view as clear bias towards Shedeur Sanders, and that pressure is only intensifying. Skip Bayless also weighed in, blasting Cleveland's approach as the worst way to handle a young quarterback. He pointed to a recurring pattern. Shedeur has been consistently mishandled by Stefanski and by the organization, and that this isn't a one-off misstep. In Bayless's view, Sanders hasn't been given a fair runway or the right support, and the way the team has managed him has only piled on the pressure, making it even harder for him to succeed.
I'm outraged, I'm sickened, and I'm saddened by the way Shedeur continues to be treated in the National Football League, now by those sorry-ass Browns and sorry-ass Kevin Stefanski.
Given how this has played out with Shedeur Sanders, it's hard to escape the sense he was put behind the 8-ball from the start. When he made his first preseason start, Stephen A. Smith said the Browns were setting Shedeur up to fail, and recent events only strengthen that take. Between the lack of meaningful first-team reps and a string of puzzling play calls, the context never looked built for growth. At this point, the pattern makes his setbacks feel less like natural growing pains and more like the product of an environment that was never set up for him to succeed.
He said he thought Dylan Gabriel was a little bit better. Y'all, chill out. You're making this combative when there's no need to be combative.
The fact that you're only here for Shedeur, okay.
Both the Browns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In their mind of logic, we're going to, and I'm pretty sure this same group of people complain about things that don't go their way in other realms of life.
As the season draws near, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders is getting more intense, with fans standing firmly behind their quarterback and believing in his potential. On the flip side, some critics haven't held back, calling those supporters naive or even foolish for backing Shedeur before he's had a real shot in the NFL. But sometimes, it's the most passionate voices that stick to what they believe, and Garrett Bush is definitely one of them. Recently, Emmett Golden criticized Shedeur's fans, accusing them of overhyping him and being too defensive. But Garrett Bush wasn't about to let that slide. He clapped back, pointing out the double standard in Emmett's comments. Garrett reminded everyone that Emmett was already pushing for Dylan to be the starter, even though Dylan clearly isn't ready for that spot yet. Garrett's point came through loud and clear. There's no reason to boost other quarterbacks just to downplay what
It's sad. If it doesn't fit your narrative, you are the enemy. No room for civil discourse.
Shedeur brings to the table. Garrett Bush didn't stop there. He made it clear that the support for Shedeur Sanders isn't just about what he can do on the field. There's a bigger picture. Garrett pointed out that Shedeur has already shown what he's made of off the field, especially with how he carries himself in interviews and press conferences. His leadership, confidence, and presence behind the mic have already made a strong impression. Even though Shedeur hasn't played an official NFL game yet, Garrett Bush didn't hold back when responding to the people people still doubting him. He took on every critic, questioning how anyone could look at Shedeur and not see the talent. How are they rating him like this when he's clearly that good? Garrett asked. He called out how unfair and inaccurate some of the evaluations were, saying people were seriously underestimating Shedeur's abilities, and fans weren't just going to stay quiet about it. Garrett made one thing crystal clear. Judging Shedeur so harshly before he's even had the chance to prove himself in the league doesn't make sense. There's a lot of talent there that's just waiting to be seen. He kept driving the point home. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a potential future star. He's ready right now. Garrett said Shedeur has what it takes to be the face of the Browns today. From how seriously he prepares, to his calm under pressure, to how he shows up when it matters most. Everything about Shedeur screams leadership, and that's exactly the kind of player Cleveland needs.
Of course, I already think that he's better than the other quarterbacks. Because that move to the 5th round, that's cool. They might have to go along with it, but to me, I think if you ask who got the best tools, I'm going with Shedeur Sanders.
Garrett Bush didn't mince words. He made it crystal clear. If anyone comes after Shedeur Sanders' fans without a good reason, they're going to get the same kind of pushback they're seeing now. No filters, no holding back. Garrett wasn't backing off, and he made sure everyone knew just how real the loyalty and dedication of Shedeur's supporters are. He understood that this fan base isn't just rallying behind Shedeur because of his talent on the field. They believe in his character, his grind, and the idea that he can lead Cleveland into a better future. That support runs deep. Not long ago, Colin Cowherd also decided to take a jab at Shedeur Sanders and his fans, and what he said definitely raised eyebrows. Colin went beyond just sharing an opinion. He challenged Shedeur's supporters, telling them to defend him the same way they had for guys like Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson on Reddit. But this wasn't some offhand take. Colin took it further, targeting everything Shedeur had worked hard to build. His words didn't feel like simple criticism. They came off as straight-up disrespect toward both the player and the people backing him. Colin's remarks weren't just about Shedeur's game. They were a direct hit on the commitment and belief his fan base continues to show.
100 miles an hour. Yep. All you fanboys, go ahead. Manziel, Baker, Deshaun Watson, defended it to the hilt on your Reddit account. Sorry.
After Colin Cowherd made his bold remarks, it didn't take long for the backlash to roll in. Fans weren't about to let that kind of disrespect slide, especially after he came so hard at Shedeur Sanders and the people who support him. The response on social media was fast and intense, with fans speaking out loudly about how upset and frustrated they were. Colin had to face serious heat for what he said, and it quickly became clear that his shots at Shedeur weren't something fans were going to just brush off or forget. Sharing an opinion about a player's talent or potential is one thing. That's part of what makes sports fun to talk about. Everyone's entitled to their own take, and discussions around player projections are nothing new. But going as far as mocking an entire fan base and calling them dumb, that crosses a line. Critiquing Shedeur's performance is fair game, but insulting the people who believe in him, that's a whole different story. Fans put in time, energy, and emotion into rooting for their favorite players, especially someone like Shedeur, who's already shown so much potential. Calling that kind of loyalty dumb isn't just rude, it completely misses what sports fandom is all about. These fans aren't blindly following someone. They see the work Shedeur puts in, they see the future he could have, and they stand behind him because they truly believe in what he can become. Mocking that belief takes away from the heart of being a fan. People care deeply about Shedeur Sanders, not just for what he can do on the field, but for what he represents. For a lot of fans, this isn't just about football. It's about hope. It's about seeing someone lead their team with strength and determination. The idea of Shedeur stepping up as Cleveland's starting QB isn't just some random dream. It's something fans are emotionally tied to. They want to see him succeed, grow, and become the player they know he's capable of being. For many, the connection goes beyond football. It's personal. It's about loyalty, belief, and holding on to the idea that better days are ahead with Shedeur leading the way.
Let me go play once again with your legal ground. Shedeur Sanders.
Shedeur Sanders is all about the hustle, and he's clearly not taking his foot off the gas anytime soon. Even in the offseason, he's locked in. He was recently seen in Miami, completely focused and getting ready for what might be the biggest test of his football journey so far, a four-man battle for the starting quarterback spot. The buzz around him is real, and with so much on the line, Shedeur isn't just showing up, he's showing up with intention, making it obvious he's determined to earn that role. Amid all the talk and debate around Shedeur Sanders, Garrett Bush has stepped up as one of his most outspoken supporters, not just for the player himself, but for the fans who've stood by him. A lot of those fans have taken heat from critics who label their support as blind or misplaced. But Garrett's not just defending Shedeur's skill set. He's standing strong for the fans who truly see something in him. His sharp responses to voices like Emmett Golden aren't just about defending Shedeur, they're about protecting the loyalty and passion of the fan base. Garrett gets that Shedeur's supporters aren't just tagging along for the ride. They see leadership. They see someone who puts in the work, both on and off the field. Their passion comes from real belief in his vision, in his drive, and in the idea that he has what it takes to lead their team forward. Garrett Bush has made his position clear. He's not going to sit quietly while fans are mocked for standing by their guy. His support goes beyond Shedeur. It's about honoring the commitment and spirit of those who believe in him. In a time when fandom often gets dismissed or questioned, Garrett reminds everyone that this kind of connection between a player and their fans is bigger than just wins and losses. It's about belief, it's about unity, and it's about backing someone who represents something greater. So, what's your take on Shedeur Sanders and the fans who are all in on his journey? Do you believe in what he brings to the table? Or do you think the hype's getting ahead of the reality? And if you're still unsure, how do you view the energy surrounding Shedeur and the people who support him? Jump into the comments and let us know where you stand.
And it's not a knock, it's just how he plays in that spread wide open offense, and you project that to a spread wide open field. Yes, the arm may not be as strong.
I can't imagine there's many people that think Dillon Gabriel's a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders. I don't care where they were drafted. And if the Browns are the one team that thinks that, then I'm going to suspect it's not true.
I never root against anybody.
Yeah.
But I'd be surprised if Dillon Gabriel's ever a legitimate starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I'd be surprised. I just don't think.
Big news coming out of Cleveland. The competition for the starting quarterback spot is getting intense. Right now, it looks like Shedeur Sanders is pulling ahead in the race for QB1, while Dillon Gabriel is starting to raise concerns about whether he can hold onto the job. Gabriel was brought in for his size and physical presence, but things haven't been going his way. His arm strength and overall throwing performance during training camp have been underwhelming. In contrast, Sanders has been consistently outperforming him on the field. At this point, Shedeur Sanders seems to be on track to take over as Cleveland's starting quarterback. This shift could have big implications for the team moving forward. Initially, Gabriel was drafted before Sanders and was widely seen as the likely pick for the top quarterback spot. But there's been one major issue that keeps coming up: his height. At just 5'11", Gabriel's size has become a real concern, especially in a league where physical stature can make a big difference. Throughout training camp, Gabriel has had a tough time making long throws with the kind of ease people expected from him. In a position that demands both power and precision, that's a tough weakness to overcome. Meanwhile, Sanders has continued to turn heads with his ability to deliver accurate deep passes, using his long limbs and natural throwing ability to his advantage. It's become clear that Sanders has taken control of the QB battle during camp, while Gabriel has struggled, particularly when facing pressure or a crowded pocket. That's now led to a lot of talk from analysts, who are wondering if Gabriel's lack of arm strength and ability to perform under pressure might be too big of a hurdle for him to succeed in the NFL. The big question now: how can a quarterback with such a serious gap in his game expect to survive, let alone thrive, in one of the most competitive football leagues on the planet?
Gets the ball out, he's accurate. As far as how does that translate to the National Football League, I just don't see it. I don't know why. I'm sure he's a great kid, he plays his ass off, he's a winner, but when I watch him on tape, nothing really excites me about his game other than the fact that he's pretty accurate, got a quick arm.
Dillon Gabriel's struggles became pretty obvious during OTAs and minicamps, where some key issues in his game started to show. One particular rep stood out. He looked noticeably worried about defensive linemen swatting down his passes at the line of scrimmage. That concern led him to start releasing the ball a bit higher than usual, and it threw things off. Some of his passes ended up sailing over his receivers' heads, while others got tipped right at the line. It's definitely something he'll need to work on if he wants to seriously compete at the pro level.
Dillon Gabriel raises a lot of eyebrows of concern. As you guys know, he had a ball batted down today, and it turned into an interception, pick six. And you guys can see right here, this was a cause of concern coming into the draft when it pertained to Dillon Gabriel, is how, his smaller frame. You guys seen it with the Johnny Manziels. Just kind of with those guys, the smaller frames getting balls batted down to the line, and ultimately turns into interceptions.
That being said, both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have things they need to work on. Neither of them is flawless, and the quarterback competition is still very much alive. Sanders has shown more consistency throughout camp, but nothing is set in stone just yet. Both quarterbacks are still in the running, and the battle is only getting more intense. While Gabriel was having his share of mistakes, Sanders was out there dropping dimes during practice. His throws were on point, showing off some serious precision and smart decision-making. One play in particular stood out. He connected with his tight end on a corner route near the back pylon. It was a tight window, with a linebacker trailing, and the receiver pressed at the line. But Sanders placed the ball perfectly. It was a textbook read. As soon as the safety bit on the short route, Sanders quickly recognized the one-on-one coverage and took the deep shot without hesitation. That kind of situational awareness, paired with his accuracy, is what's giving him the edge right now. There's even been some chatter that Cleveland may have picked up Dillon Gabriel just to block another team from grabbing Sanders. According to reports, owner Jimmy Haslam was very interested in bringing Shedeur on board, but not everyone on the coaching staff was sold at the time. Regardless of those early disagreements, Sanders is proving himself where it matters, on the field, showing that he's ready to compete at the highest level.
There's a lot of speculation. He wanted Shedeur Sanders. The staff drafted Dillon Gabriel, Oregon, 2 rounds earlier. And they were doing that not because they necessarily loved Dillon Gabriel, they liked him, but they thought it would stop their impulsive owner from forcing them to draft in round 4 Shedeur Sanders.
One thing that's really helped Shedeur Sanders stand out is how well he communicates on the field and takes charge of his teammates. His leadership and calm under pressure have pushed aside any lingering doubts about his potential, and he's steadily climbing to the top of the QB competition. The progress he's made in such a short span is making the coaching staff take a second look at their original plans. At this point, it's becoming clear that Sanders is making a serious case to be the future face of the Cleveland Browns. But it's not just the coaches he's winning over. Fans are fully backing him too. Across all age groups, people are showing strong support for Sanders, with many calling for him to be named the starting quarterback. His exciting play style, paired with his natural leadership and magnetic personality, has really struck a chord with the fan base. There's a noticeable buzz building around the idea of him leading the team, and fans are clearly invested in his journey. The hype isn't just about what he could become. It's about the energy and spark he's already bringing to the team. Fans want someone who can lead, inspire, and get results. And right now, Sanders looks like that guy. Even veteran quarterback Joe Flacco had high praise for him, saying Sanders puts a smile on his face, not just because of how he plays, but because of the positive vibe he brings to the locker room. It's obvious that Sanders is leaving a strong impression on everyone, from coaches and analysts to his teammates.
I don't know if it has an impact on much, but Shedeur's been great. I mean, he's a lot of fun to be around in those meeting rooms, and I think so far there's been, at least once in the meeting room that he's made me crack a smile, and that's what it's all about. He's a young guy trying to learn some football and come out here and practice well and do those things. And like I said, he's been a lot of fun. I mean, he's come up to me and.
As the quarterback race in Cleveland picks up steam, it's becoming more obvious that Dillon Gabriel is slipping out of serious contention for the starting role. He came into camp with high hopes, thanks in large part to his size and athleticism, but his recent showings have raised some red flags. Gabriel's inconsistency with deep throws, especially when under pressure, has exposed a major weakness that's tough to ignore. Even with his solid build and physical tools, Gabriel just hasn't shown the kind of arm strength and accuracy needed to compete at the NFL level. His inability to stay composed and deliver under pressure has only fueled more concern about whether he can really hold his own in this league. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is quickly climbing the depth chart, not just because of his standout play, but also due to his physical strength and mental grit. Sanders has been throwing with confidence and precision, even under duress, and he's consistently making smart reads when it counts. His accuracy and decision-making have really popped during training camp. What's more impressive is Sanders' commitment. Even without getting most of the first-team reps, he stayed locked in and kept a disciplined approach. That work ethic, paired with his upbeat personality and leadership qualities, has earned him the respect of both his coaches and teammates. He's become a favorite among the fans, not just for what he's doing on the field, but for the energy he brings to the team overall. With Gabriel continuing to struggle, Sanders is clearly setting himself apart, not only with performance, but with presence. So now the question goes out to Browns fans. With Gabriel trying to find his footing, and Sanders making a strong push with solid play and leadership, who do you see taking over as QB1? Are you holding out hope that Gabriel bounces back? Or do you think Sanders is the obvious choice to lead this team into the future? Let us know what you think and who you're backing.